Do you remember the name of your little computer person? I do. His name was Howard. He had brown hair, which is kind of strange because I can barely remember what I had for dinner last night, and yet I remember this computer guy from 40 years ago. And I think that says a lot about what Little Computer People was able to do. It wasn't a huge hit, and it certainly didn't break any sales records, but for those who played it, it created a really convincing illusion that there's a little guy living in your computer. You didn't control him, you didn't even try to win. You just kind of watched and sometimes helped out a little bit. And somehow, that made for one of the most memorable gaming experiences of the 80s. Let's take a look. Working late in a computer science laboratory one night, a group of researchers stumbled across an earth-shattering discovery. Cute little humanoid creatures living inside computers. That's how Activision set the stage for Little Computer People. There's someone living in your Commodore 64, and you, as the scientist, are responsible for observing, taking notes, and occasionally taking care of them. It's a strange setup for a game, especially in 1985. Developed by Rich Gold and the legendary David Crane, it didn't fit neatly into any genre, and it wasn't much of a commercial hit. But the people who experienced it, they never forgot it. So grab your lab book and sharpen that pencil as we take a closer look at one of the most unusual experiments ever released for the Commodore 64. Little Computer People didn't start out as a game. It started as an art experiment. The original idea came from Rich Gold, an artist and engineer who was interested in how computers could create experiences, not just games. His concept was something he called a pet person, inspired by the pet rock fad of the 1970s. The idea was simple, and a little strange. A person living inside your computer that you don't control, you just observe. Gold funded some early development and brought in a design firm to help shape the idea, including the now iconic house setting. But even after about a year of work, there was a problem. No one really knew how to sell it. It wasn't a game. It didn't have a goal. It was just there. 10 years later, we'd probably call it a screensaver, but in the early 80s, it was something entirely new. Eventually, the project made its way to Activision, where President Jim Levy showed it to co-founder and veteran developer David Crane, best known for hits like Pitfall. Crane saw what everyone else saw, a fascinating idea that wasn't quite a product. But where others saw a dead end, he saw potential, not in what it was, but in what it could become. The original vision was passive, just watch what happens. He didn't think that was enough. If this little person was going to live inside your computer, you should be able to interact with them. That shift, though, wasn't small. It meant rethinking the entire project. Crane took it on as what he later described as one of the hardest programming challenges of his career. Over the next couple of years, an unusually long development cycle for the time, he focused almost entirely on building a behavioral system that could make this character feel alive. Not through complex AI, but through carefully crafted routines, personality parameters, and just enough unpredictability to create the illusion of independence. Each copy of the game even generated a slightly different personality, so your little person was uniquely yours, and just as likely to ignore you as respond. By the time Little Computer People was finished, it wasn't really a game, or a simulation, or an art piece. It was something simpler than all of those, and somehow more convincing. Released in September 1985 for the Commodore 64, it didn't sell in huge numbers, but it was well received. As David Crane later put it, it didn't sell a lot of copies, but the people who bought it absolutely loved it. Ports followed for systems like the Atari ST, Amiga, Amstrad, and ZX Spectrum. A Japanese version, Appletown Story, even reimagined the concept with a female character in a redesigned house. Ultimately though, it didn't sell well enough to justify sequels or add-on content, but it remains a cherished cult classic, which is pretty remarkable for something that started as a pet rock experiment and somehow convinced people there was someone living inside their computer. This is Jay, the little guy living in my computer. And the player? Well, the game puts us in the role of a scientist, observing, researching, and occasionally participating. As you can see, Jay lives a pretty comfortable existence. Nice house, a happy dog, and plenty of things to do. Left alone, he keeps himself busy, playing the piano, talking on the phone, reading the newspaper, even working out. And over time, you start to get a sense that he has real preferences, things he enjoys, things he doesn't. And Jay has physical needs too. He needs food and water, and to occasionally, okay, a lot, use the facilities. He can take care of some of those needs himself, but for some, a little help is required. When his food or water are running low, for example, it's up to us to provide them. Or not. Hey, it's for science. When things are going well, Jay lets me know. He struts around the house with a huge smile on his face and a skip in his step. And when things aren't going well, usually if he's hungry or if I'm ignoring him, he'll shuffle around the house in abject misery. It's actually kind of pathetic. But it works. And this is where Little Computer People starts getting really interesting. When Jay is sad, I kick into high gear and give him all the attention he craves. This usually means a quick massage when he's in his easy chair, leaving him a new record or book, or asking him to play a game together. And Jay loves playing games. Poker, anagrams, and card wars. Each is simple, and like everything else in Little Computer People, winning isn't really the point. Instead, it's about simple companionship, which generally does the trick to cheer him up, which then makes me feel better. Which is crazy. I mean, I know he's not real, but the game design is so effective that I forget all about that. Aside from leaving food and an occasional gift, I can also interact with Jay directly through my keyboard. And this is where Jay starts feeling even more alive, because you can ask anything, and like a real person, Jay will respond according to his mood. Sometimes he loves your idea, and sometimes, not so much. Maybe he's hungry, or maybe he's bored. Maybe he just doesn't feel like it. Or maybe the system didn't quite understand what I asked. And that's not something you see in games. Typically, player input leads to a direct result. Move left, your character moves left. Enter a command, your character does the thing. Little Computer People doesn't quite work like that. When the game gets a command, it filters it through its known list of keywords, Jay's preferences, and his mood. And sometimes he just ignores you entirely, which is brilliant. There aren't any error messages, and it never feels like the system is failing. It feels like he's choosing. And that perceived independence is what makes him feel so lifelike. Pushing the illusion a further step forward is the fact that Jay isn't just waiting for us to do something. He knows we're there watching, and he'll reach out directly. Sometimes he turns to the screen and starts talking. Sometimes he taps on the glass, another relic of the time. And sometimes he'll write us a letter on that big clunky typewriter. The letters are one of the few times we get direct insight into what Jay's thinking. If he wants something, he'll let us know. Very politely, of course. And if he's just happy or sad and wants to share, he'll do that as well. It's a very cool feature, and it's really the only way we can know exactly what he's thinking. But interestingly, this is also where the illusion breaks down a bit. When Jay speaks, either directly or on the phone, it's in his own language, just gibberish. And that actually helps. We don't understand what he's saying, so we fill in the gaps. It's a lot like Simlish, actually. But when he writes, there's no ambiguity. He uses a small set of pre-written phrases, and before long, you start to see the same ones repeated. Sometimes they don't even quite fit together. In a game this open, the letters just feel constrained and remind me that I'm playing a video game, not actually caring for a little guy in my computer. We call that breaking immersion now. Back then, it just felt a bit off. Over time, all of these requests and interactions start to have an effect. Jay changes. If you keep asking him to play the piano, he starts doing it more on his own. If you pet him every time he sits in the chair, which he loves, he starts sitting there more often. Those small interactions get saved and gradually shape his behavior. So the version of Jay you start with isn't the one you end up with, which is perhaps the most interesting part of the game. In a way, you're molding this little guy to match your style and your preferences, and this explains a lot about why so many people got attached to their little computer person. But not everyone got attached. Some people were all about pushing boundaries and experimenting. After all, this is science. When I played as a kid, I usually took on the role of the benevolent provider. I'd feel genuinely guilty if I let him go hungry. My sister? Not so much. She was a god to be feared. She'd deprive my little guy, his name was Howard, until he got sick, and then would just wait. I assume she was trying to see if he could die. He can't, by the way. And when she'd leave the computer for a break, I'd sneak over and top up his food and water. It drove her nuts, but I hated seeing him like that, and so I'd save him. And also, it was my computer, so, my rules. And in retrospect, all of this is completely ridiculous. It's just a computer program. But it says a lot about how convincing the illusion is. And that's really the heart of it. Little Computer People is a simple system, but it doesn't feel simple at all. And that's why people got attached, and why they still remember the name of the little person that lived in their Commodore 64 all those years ago. The sounds and graphics in Little Computer People aren't just there for presentation. They're a big part of why the illusion works. Jay is expressive and remarkably well animated. Whether he's bending over to open a filing cabinet, playing the piano, or dancing, those simple outline sprites are doing exactly what they need to. The dog helps too. It wanders around the house, tail wagging, occasionally stopping to look out through the monitor, like it knows we're watching. It's a small touch, but it goes a long way. And the house itself plays an important role. Everything about it feels familiar, grounded. The oversized TV, the chunky typewriter, the mechanical alarm clock, it's all very of its time, and that makes the whole thing more believable. The only thing missing is the wood paneling. And the believability goes beyond design. Crane, clearly focused on maintaining the illusion, even made sure that saving, an action that will slow things down, only happens when Jay is off screen. The sound design follows the same philosophy. The typewriter, the phone, the computer, they all sound just right. Not perfect, but close enough that your brain fills in the rest. And there's no background music, but Jay more than makes up for it. He's an excellent pianist, and his record collection pulls in some great compositions, mostly music from another Activision classic, Master of the Lamps. It's less about atmosphere and more about character. But the most interesting audio, that comes from Jay himself. When he speaks, it's complete gibberish, a cross between the adults in Charlie Brown and Simlish. And like both of those, it works because we don't understand it. We just get it. And once again, the illusion holds. The Commodore 64 Appreciation Society absolutely adores little computer people, and we're definitely not alone. It caused a stir on its release and received great reviews from a wide range of publications. Zap64 awarded it 97%, calling it a stunning advancement in computer entertainment. Commodore User gave it a 5 out of 5, and Commodore Horizons gave it an 8 out of 10. Some 40 years later, the high praise still holds. It's currently sitting just outside Lemon 64's top 100 games of all time with a strong 8.3 rating, and it's ranked as the 16th best game released in 1985. With such high praise, it's a surprise and rather unfortunate that it didn't perform well commercially. Perhaps it's not all that shocking though. Today, the market for simulations and cozy experiences like Little Computer People is massive. But back in 1985, in a marketplace largely made up of teenage boys looking for action and competition, it didn't quite fit. Little Computer People was one of the very first games like this in the space. It's a direct ancestor to virtual pets and life simulators, and in fact, Will Wright has explicitly cited the game as one of his key influences for The Sims. But whereas Wright was able to take advantage of immensely more powerful and connected computers, David Crane was limited to 64K, 16 colors, and a 1 MHz processor, which makes what he accomplished even more impressive. But as impressive as the game technically is, that's not why Little Computer People is remembered so fondly. Rather, it's remembered for how it made us feel. It created the illusion of presence. We weren't playing to beat a buddy's high score to complete a level. We were coexisting with a little guy in our computer who felt remarkably lifelike. This is why, some 40 years later, many of us still remember the names of our Little Computer People and can tell stories about them. There aren't many games that leave that kind of imprint. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have any memories of Little Computer People and can remember the name of your guy, make sure to share them in the comments. Hope to see you again.